Well, I think we've owned Berkshire a few times, and I think sometimes it's gotten cheaper than at other times. And like for example, and I may not have all my facts straight on that, but there's an emerging young investor called Alan Meacham, and maybe Arvind, you can have him come and speak to your class. I think he's in Utah or someplace. Arlington Capital Management or something is the name of the fund. I think they have a few hundred million under management, and he had and probably still has, I think, a pretty large position in Berkshire. I seem to recall it was more than 50% of the fund. And what he had done is he had levered that portfolio, borrowed against it to reduce the returns. And he basically levered it because he, in effect, thought that with Berkshire there was a put where Warren had said that, below 1.2 times book, he'll buy back stock. And so, in effect, when before that it was 1.15 or 1.1, and whenever Buffett said that, the stock basically never went below those floors. Or if it went below the floor, it just came right back up because that's the time when Warren was buying. So he bought his position basically right at or slightly above that floor, with the assumption that it'll do reasonably well over the future, and then he levered it on top of that to reduce the returns, and he did quite well. Now, I looked at that, and to me, the perspective was, I remembered Buffett's story about Rick Gurren, and the thing is that the Buffett put, if you will, there are circumstances under which Buffett would not exercise that put. So, for example, if you got to 2009 type pricing, rather than buying Berkshire stock, he'd be looking to buy other things, and he wouldn't care if Berkshire went down. It's unlikely, very unlikely. But in those types of scenarios, Alan might get margin calls, and it didn't happen during the period that he owned it. So in general, I would say with Berkshire you would do reasonably well, but I think it's just so large that I think you ought to be able to find things that will do better unless it gets close to that floor level pricing. Leucadia is a different animal now because the two founders are gone and there's another guy running it, so you have to handicap how well that guy does. Fairfax, actually they have a stated objective of delivering 15% or more long-term returns to investors. So if you agree with that and you think they'll do that and that's your objective, then that'd be a good stock to own for that. But I think that if you're working with small amounts of capital, you ought to be able to do better than any of those items.